Hey, if you're looking for something laid back to listen to while gaming, studying, cleaning, or just vibing, you're in the right place. I'll be reading some random stories from Reddit while casually playing some Minecraft in the background. I'm still pretty new to Minecraft though, so don't judge my builds yet, but I've been loving this game so far. And if you have a story that you want me to read or certain types of posts you'd like to hear next time, drop it in the comments or send it to me on Discord. I have the link in the description. Let's hop into the story. So this first one, I actually got this from a marriage post. It says, should I be concerned about my wife's behavior? He says, I'm really only looking for comments from other married people. I, for one, am a married person. Especially women and people with kids who won't say stupid things like she's definitely cheating, bro, or just leave. Sounds interesting. Let's get into this one. Been with my wife for 22 years, married for 16. We have young kids. I love her like crazy. She's beautiful, smart, and just a kind and cool person. I think my lucky stars we met and fell in love against all odds. That's another story. We've always had a very solid marriage, but things have grown complicated recently due to 3 things in my estimation anyway. First, over the last couple of years, she developed a close friendship with a divorced male coworker of about the same age. She took a new job in a small office and they worked closely together. I was very supportive of her career move and I didn't think much about it. This coworker for the first year or so. But then I realized she was talking a lot about him in our personal conversations, like a lot, maybe 20 to 30% of our conversations ended up involving him somehow. That is pretty weird. That got my hackles up. First of my hackles. Okay. I didn't push it because I do not want to be controlling, and frankly, I'm objectively better looking. He's not ugly, just a little goofy looking. And I'm somewhat more successful than him, so I wasn't threatened initially, but it set the stage for more recent events. About a month or so ago, he left for another job and she was clearly depressed over it. They still communicate through text conversations once a week or so. She had texted him daily, multiple times a day. Okay. And so far they have made plans for breakfast/lunch, one-on-one, which she told me about though, somewhat begrudgingly. And they did one group outing at night with one other colleague. So they still see each other from time to time and communicate regularly, but not daily anymore. Her grieving his absence around the office really set off an alarm for me, especially when they still communicate outside of work. And I became very concerned and started to deeply feel insecure in our marriage. Second, her job has become very demanding. On many evenings and weekends, she works on her laptop at home without much of a break. She likes her job and is very good at it, but I think it's clear that she is now burnt out and is needing to be away from people who depend on her so she can just shut off her brain and have fun and recharge. Because I'm experiencing major career burnout too, I'm sensitive to the signs, and I really tried to support her through this by getting her a nice hotel room downtown for a night to spend by herself from time to time. By taking our kids on a road trip without her this summer so she could spend time just by herself, by encouraging her to take a trip back home to see old friends, by insisting she go to the spa regularly to relax, by letting her nap on the weekends, in afternoons while I take care of things, etc. So he's doing a lot. That's a lot. I would love that. Shoot. I already do a lot of the childcare and house cleaning, by the way, despite having my own busy career. So don't bother to suggest that I simply do even more. Yeah, he's doing a lot. So that is kind of strange to even suggest that. Let's get back to it. Currently, I'd say we have a 55/45 or 60/40 split in which I do 55 to 60% of both those things. She has more or less acknowledged that she knows it too. Third, I've been going through my own midlife depression, sometimes pretty severe with suicidal ideation and so on. I probably shouldn't say that on YouTube. I might have to edit that out. On top of all this, and have been really struggling to keep it together emotionally. I've cried several times, not in front of her, but she's aware of it. And I was not a crier at all prior to this. I even saw a therapist, which was a big step for me. It was profoundly unhelpful, unfortunately. He literally said midlife depression is normal in men your age, and you just have to push through. And yeah, I see why you're concerned about your wife's friendship with this guy. I would be too. Okay, so some therapists really do too much, but I can't speak from that experience. Yeah, I want to try therapy, but I just haven't gone through with that yet, but I will soon. And I'll let y'all know how that goes. So these three things have culminated in a tough period in our marriage. I think she views me as an emotional drain because of my depression, which I understand, and views our kids as a drain too. On the other hand, she seems to view her male friend as someone who helps her unwind and recharge through easy conversations that come without obligation. That is a dangerous combination for a marriage from my point of view, and has me constantly stressed, not sleeping well, and so on. But also fighting to not show how bothered I am most of the time. I'm working really, really hard to put my needs and depression aside and not be a drain on her any more than necessary. I have a friend who is similarly in a midlife depression, and we lean on each other sometimes instead of me leaning on her as much. And like I said, I tried therapy. I'm also trying to date her more and take her out for fun, stress-free nights so she can unwind with me. We've always dated and spent time together by getting breakfast before work and that kind of thing, but going out at night was harder because of our kids being so young. They're finally old enough that we're comfortable being out later while they're with the sitter, so we're venturing out at night a bit more recently. At the same time, however, I've talked with her and shared my discomfort with her close relationship with this guy. For the most part, I've done this openly and directly in a fairly calm way. Though sometimes in weak moments, I've been pretty petty and passive aggressive, but I've also told her that I don't want to interfere with their friendship as long as she can assure me that everything is truly platonic and so on. She is unsurprisingly and understandably very defensive about the whole thing. She denies any romantic feelings or attraction toward the guy, and she says he's like a brother to her. Okay, that's like a huge red flag. Saying, oh, this person's a brother to me, this person's a sister to me. I'm like, okay, that still means at some point you like them and they friends on you, or vice versa, right? And then to get defensive about it seems weird. That's the red flag right there. I don't like that. She denies any romantic feelings or attraction toward the guy, and that she says he's like a brother to her. At one point though, I also asked her if she loves him, and she said yes, she loves him as a friend. And I'm sure she knew that's not what I meant, and not the answer I needed in that moment. To me in that moment, that just sounded like a soft yes. But I'm trying to take her at her word and assume that she was just trying to speak openly and accurately, so I have not brought it up since then. I don't think bringing it up would help. I've also told her repeatedly that all I need from her is to make this all feel okay. Is words of reassurance and affirmation of our love, like, hey, I love you and only you. I only want you and just you. You're so handsome, etc., etc. Just simple words that would help me feel more secure about us and could also give us a boost in my depression. But she insists she cannot do that. Bro, what? I'm sorry, that's crazy. She insists she cannot do that because it just doesn't come naturally to her to say those kinds of things. Okay, as a woman, that's weird. Like, even just casual conversation with your spouse, you know, just passing by or whatever, you're gonna usually call them by their nickname, call them handsome, things like that. And, you know, you kind of consistently say I love you because you're in a relationship with that person. It just seems kind of weird to be like, I can't say I love you to you and call you handsome and things like that. And to say it doesn't come natural to like someone you've been with for 22 years is kind of insane. I ain't gonna lie, that's kind of insane. Wow. She does show love in other ways. though, like getting my favorite snacks from the grocery store and so on. And I'm working to recognize and appreciate those signs of love instead of seeking out the words that I crave. But last night really hurt me because I told her, "You and no other," something we used to say to each other all the time, and she just said, "I love you" back. When I asked, "Can you say it too?" she teasingly shook her head no, like in a playful way. So then I asked half jokingly, if I asked, "Are there others?" She teasingly said yes. I believe she thought she was being silly and cute and sarcastic, but it just wasn't fun for me. But again, I don't want to drain her energy and make things even harder between us, so I just played her off like I was in on the joke. While yearning inside to hear those words from her, it really hurt. They're just words for me. It's so easy to say them, especially when you love someone. It costs nothing to say some words. All right, so now he's asking us, has anyone ever been through this, especially from the female perspective? Am I reading too much into things, or am I right to be hurt and concerned? Am I being whiny or childish or unreasonable to crave words of love? Have I already lost my wife to someone else, or is she just tired and needing space from obligations, and this other guy really has nothing to do with her other than being a convenient friend to hang out with and unwind with? Or is this guy becoming her emotional refuge and a potential affair partner? Am I being paranoid and needy? Am I crazy? Me personally, I would suggest in this situation, go hang out with her and that friend. Like, just for fun. Or ask if that friend has a girlfriend or a wife or something like that, and y'all like do double dates and things like that. I would say y'all all go hang out, and then you could feel that vibe out. Okay, he has an edit here. I don't know if this is an update. Let me see. He says, because a few people brought it up, our sex life is pretty solid. My drive only seems to increase with age and is especially high right now, and hers seems to have increased lately too, to match mine, which I obviously enjoy and appreciate, though it's a little odd against the background of all this. Also, she does invest in us too, like she planned a long weekend getaway for us this summer. It's complicated, I guess. So with this, like I said, I would say go hang out with them. Like, I get like that's her thing to unwind, but at least that would clear your mind and let you know for sure, okay, is this guy friend like trying to, you know, get up on my wife and be a potential affair partner? I highly suggest doing that. Then you could kind of fill out the vibes, because if he kind of gets defensive around the husband, then that kind of shows like, hey, something's going on here. Or if they're like awkward around him, I feel like that would show that. But y'all let me know what you think about this story in the comments. We're gonna head on to our next story. Okay, I feel like this one might be kind of wild. And I try not to cuss. This one is am I the a-hole for refusing to kick my little brother, 17 male, out of my place at my girlfriend's request so she, a 21-year-old female, would feel better about moving in with me, 22-year-old male? I, the 22-year-old male, have been taking care of my little brother for just over 2 years since our dad died. Our mom died a few years before that. Both had very bad health. He lives with me and goes back to the local high school by my apartment. He had to switch high schools to the one close to where I stayed because my parents were in different areas, and he works whenever he is not in school. He works 2 part-time jobs during the school year and works full-time throughout the summer. Dang. Because even though I took him in, he has a lot of expenses. I just can't afford to cover it all and want to save up for the coming years. He shouldn't be in this boat at all, but that's life. He's so young. Life has been very unfair to him, and he's a really good kid. I have been dating my girlfriend for just over a year. She wants to move in and not contribute to the household expenses because I shouldn't charge her for rent because she is not a tenant. And I am not a landlord, but we are boyfriend and girlfriend, and I should be happy with my girlfriend. I should be happy that my girlfriend wants to move in with me. and I guess not contribute anything to the household expenses because she sees it as me charging her rent. This girlfriend sounds like something. She also wants me to tell my brother to leave so we can have the space to ourselves and she can have more space. She has referred to him as a she has referred to him as a freeloader even though he is just a kid and I got myself to become his legal guardian. I told her no way. I think I should break up with her over just suggesting this, but I don't know if I should go that far and maybe should try and get her to see where I'm coming from. Okay, it's kind of weird I totally get the not going 50-50 part when you have a boyfriend that makes more money that can, cover the expenses, but let that be his idea, I feel like as a girl coming in, if a guy wants to take care of you, hey, let him, but, well, especially more so if you're his wife and then you're gonna take care of like all the household duties and things like that and, take care of everything else for the most part. But it's so weird to come in with that mindset like, hey, kick out your little brother even though I know you just lost your parents. He doesn't have a mom or a dad. All he has left is his brother and he's 17. It's not like he's gonna live there forever. Like he's gonna move out and he's working multiple jobs and going to high school at the same time. Like this girlfriend just doesn't sound like a good person for real. Like who's gonna say, yeah, kick out your little brother, he's a freeloader, like he's working 2 jobs during the school year and then working full-time during the summer, like, and to call him a freeloader, I'm like, that's crazy. Like come on now, that's wild. So obviously he's not the a-hole for this. I'm not saying break up with her, but I probably wouldn't let her move in. Maybe push that down the line, like way down the line. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments. That's crazy. On to our next story. Ooh, this one's an age gap story. That should be interesting. I, female 27, am starting to regret my age gap marriage with a male 43. Interesting. Okay. Throwaway, obviously. Okay, to start, we met when I was newlywed. I'm sorry. Let me just start over, bro. To start, we met when I was newly turned 22. I didn't realize he was on his late 30s. He honestly looked and acted like he was late 20s. Guys act like that, by the way, y'all. But anyway. When I first met him, he came along and offered security. I jumped on it. I knew it was weird dating a guy so much older, but I've always had a rebellionish mindset. I don't know, I thought it was kind of hot. I blame Lana Del Rey and people in my life for not telling me it was a questionable relationship. Yeah, please tell me who Lana Del Rey is in the comments. I don't know who the heck that is. We married when I was 25 and everything has been pretty alright on paper, so I feel bad complaining. We're both on the same page with a lot of things, like we live a pretty comfy life as dinks. What the heck are dinks? And are building a solid foundation together. We show affection to each other, though sometimes it feels like he's just a roommate or parental figure. Our sex life is boring, and that's also a big part of it. I know if I divorced him, we'd both be back to where we started financially, and I couldn't really afford to live where/how I do. I also don't want to go through the hassle of dating again. Anyways, even though I'd say our marriage is like 80% good and I feel a deep love for him, I also realize now that my frontal lobe is fully developed. Let me get a sip of water. Stay hydrated, folks. Anyways, even though I'd say our marriage is like 80% good and I feel a deep love for him, I also realize now that my frontal lobe is fully developed and I'm growing out of this container of him making all the decisions. I probably wouldn't choose him as a partner if I had met him now. Really, the core of it all is that I'm carrying this resentful slash ick feeling that he pursued me when I was so young. So, what if I was mature for my age? I couldn't even imagine dating a 22-year-old now, and I'm only 27. Has anybody else ever been in this situation? How did you work through it? Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of a bigger age gap. I think the oldest guy I ever dated, and I didn't marry him. He was like 10 years older than me. I dated him, but I didn't marry him. And he was cool, but it was kind of weird. He was older than me, and he was also shorter than me, though. He also didn't really act his age, so it was just awkward. I couldn't see myself living a life with him. But I feel like as a woman, you always are going to go for that older guy because they're more mature. So I'm 25, and if I dated another 25-year-old, he more than likely wouldn't be as mature. And that's just kind of how it usually goes. I kind of feel bad saying this because I know the majority of my audience is male, but that's usually how it goes. So women usually want to date older guys because they just have that maturity level and you can learn from them. When the guy is the same age as you, usually it feels like almost like you're still teaching him things. So I don't know. That's interesting. Let's read the edits on here. She says, I received a lot of interesting perspectives, so thank you to everyone who commented. I didn't realize this would get so much traction, but that's what everyone says. Honestly, I was just in my late night feelings and wanted to get this off my chest. So if anyone else has successfully worked through not only a change in personalities with your partner, but generated gaps tied into that, I thought about deleting this, but I think it might help others think through things in their relationship, so I'll leave it up. To clarify some things, he wasn't well off when we got married. We just built a stable life together. He's changed a lot also in a way we influenced each other into the people we are now, and or maybe we just both had space to let go of past traumas and then accidentally became different people in that process, which I can understand that. I feel like in a marriage, you are going to influence each other, especially over the years. You kind of mold your person into what you like in a way, a little bit. They already are who they are. One thing me and my husband always love to throw around is like, know who you marry, know who you marry, because that person is more likely going to stay that way. Like, of course they're going to mature more and change a little bit, but for the most part they're going to show you who they are in the beginning. Let's continue on what she said. She says, and the ick from the age gap didn't come from social media. It came from me growing up and seeing relationship dynamics more clearly. Lastly, I will talk to him about all this. It's not like we haven't deeply and repeatedly talked about issues before. I just never brought it up. I just never brought up the age difference because I felt like it was my choice to marry him. And in the beginning, I told him a million times I was all right with it. So yeah, that makes sense. I don't necessarily think the age gap is that much of a difference. How old was he? She's 27, he's 43. Ooh, hold on, was that right? Yeah, 27 and 43. That's a 16-year age gap. That's pretty big. Ooh, I don't know. I dated a guy who was 10 years older. I thought that was a lot. 16, that's pretty big. That's a big age gap, I ain't gonna lie. Me and my husband were about like 4.5 years apart, and I feel like that's a perfect kind of age gap for us. And honestly, that 10-year gap was probably the most I ever did, and I was like, yeah, I don't see myself marrying you. But honestly, man, that is a big age gap. I'm just reading the comments and everyone's telling her to start over and things like that, and talking about how they got divorced at 27. I don't think that's really helpful for what she's looking for. I think she actually wants to make her relationship work. But that is a big age gap in my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of age gaps and like what's okay. Because I've even had some of my own family members say that me and my husband's age gap was a lot, but then them themselves had like a 8 year age gap. I was like, bro, whatever. People, it's to each their own, but yeah, some age gaps are like way too much. 16 is a lot in my opinion. I even thought 10 was a lot, but you know, it depends on the person. It really does. And it also depends on when you get with the person though too. Like if a person is like obviously underage and then they're talking to a person that's way older than them, obviously that's inappropriate. But if they're already, you know, above standard ages and already a mature adult, then that's usually different. But let's get on to our next story. Okay, this is a weird one. This one says, apparently aunts need to pay child support. My brother's ex-girlfriend told me I would be responsible for my brother's child support if she ever took him to court. She said her boss is a lawyer and she told her since I was living in the same house as my brother and he's unemployed, I will owe child support. I laughed in her face because I thought she was joking, but she was dead serious. I told her I'd see her in court. I'm the aunt, by the way, and have no parental rights whatsoever. I just graduated university and started my career. I don't pay for any of my brother's bills or expenses. My mom does. My mom also spends a lot of money on the kids, and they're taken care of. I pay my own share of the rent and the utilities. This is peak entitlement, so I can't pursue my own dreams of starting a family or having my own dream life because I have to support hers. Yeah, honestly, none of that even makes sense. Like, what? Yeah, folks just be talking crazy. That doesn't make any sense. We're gonna read another one of these. Ooh, this one has something to do with the daycare. I just put my baby in daycare. Ooh, wee. Entitled parents report me after I stopped their child from hitting. I'm a support teacher at a daycare. A few days ago, I was covering the preschool class and we were lining the children up to go outside. As my coworker was taking attendance, one of the kids, a girl that I referred to as M, started slapping me on the stomach. Bro, what? The slaps barely felt like anything, so I just shrugged it off and I ignored her, assuming she would just get bored and stop. However, she then started hitting me even harder, and I tried to politely ask M to stop. M didn't listen and began to hit me on my back as well. I finally raised my voice and sternly told her to knock it off before putting up my arm to block. I'm a relatively strong guy, so when she slapped my forearm, she grabbed her hand and started crying. To which I replied, you see, that's why we don't hit. Later, at the end of the day, when the kids were getting picked up, I was called to the front office. Apparently, M told her parents that I hit her when she was playing with me. And so they confronted my manager about it. After telling my side of the story, my manager looked through the security footage and watched the incident through. She showed M's parents how I never raised my hand against her and acted purely in self-defense. Before leaving, M's parents each gave me a dirty look like they were angry they couldn't charge me with anything. Not even an apology for how their daughter acted. That is insane. Like, I can only imagine if my kid is just at daycare, being a baby kid, hitting the freaking teachers. I'm not going to be upset at the teacher. I'm going to be more so ready to discipline my child and explain to him, hey, we don't hit. And we definitely don't hit teachers, you know. But honestly, growing up in school, I wish I hit more. Growing up in school, it's different though. It's different though. That's for like, I'm talking about middle school and high school and things like that. But for preschool and stuff like that, you teach the kids not to hit. It's one thing to protect yourself and defend yourself in self-defense. You don't want to be the aggravator, the person, you know, starting the fights. But of course, protect yourself if somebody hits you. I say, shoot, hit them back. Somebody want to push you a little too hard, push them boys back. But that's just me. as far as hitting teachers go, no, that's a no-go. You're getting in trouble for that. No games, no nothing. You on punishment. Like, who do you think you are hitting a teacher? And you gotta understand, these are, preschoolers are toddlers. They're pretty much just big babies, and they're still learning their environments and figuring things out. But a lot of things do start at home. So discipline your child and don't be upset at the teacher. Like, if they literally visually got to watch the video and see that their child was the one hitting the teacher, to give the teacher an angry look makes no sense at all. Like they were just ready to cause a problem. Like, no, that doesn't make sense. Discipline your children and teach them not to hit people, more especially teachers. On to our next story. Oh my goodness. Okay, this one's on a religious tip. My family is deeply rooted inside of a Christian-based cult in Kentucky. Every Sunday they made us wear white shirts and whisper through the halls like we were in a hospital for ghosts. We took turns standing in a circle while the older men placed their hands on our heads and murmured words we weren't allowed to repeat. These were secret rooms only the elders could enter, and they always came out looking tired and proud. I thought it was all completely normal because we were Mormon, but I was wrong. They actually called themselves the More Men. I have stories. I have memories I still can't explain that come back to me in bits. Has anyone had family that has been manipulated by this Christian-based organization? Every night I thank God we got out of rural Kentucky, even if I still wake up with their voices in my head. Last Friday, my mother called me again. She started preaching that same cult stuff like she always does, even though I've told her how I feel about the More Men. By the way, they're not saying regular Mormon like Latter-day Saints. That's what they said in the beginning. But they're saying More Men, kind of like the show. What was that show called back in the day? With the three guys. It was like Two Men and Boy or something, whatever the heck it was called. Like that, basically. M-E-N, not M-O-N. But let's continue. She got upset, called me delusional, and said I was making things up. I was tired of the gaslighting, tired of the childhood trauma, and snapped and said one word, the B word, and I haven't called her since. Now, some of you guys are going to be appalled when I say this or something like that, but I'm a Latter-day Saint. People usually, back in the day, or they still kind of do since recently, call us Mormon as well. But I might even read some of the stories on Reddit on here about my religion, but we are Christians as well, so it's always funny and interesting to hear the things that people have to say. But I'm like, nah, we believe in Jesus Christ. That's my Lord and Savior, and that is that. But yeah, as far as this goes, this isn't something we do at church. That's why I'm like, this doesn't sound right. Like secret rooms only elders could enter and stuff like that. It doesn't sound right. I've never heard of anything like this, but if you guys have, let me know in the comments like what the heck that is. But nah, for me, for my religion, we're Christians and we go to church on Sunday just like everybody else, and we share our testimonies with Jesus Christ, and we read scriptures, we read the Bible, we read the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, so on and so on. So yeah, I ain't never heard of that, but that's interesting. On to our next story, famo. Alright, this one should be interesting because I also live in an HOA, so this should be a fun read. Honestly, it looks long though. I'm gonna read it anyways. The HOA president's long goodbye. When I moved into my suburban neighborhood, I expected peace and quiet. Instead, I walked into a pretty dictatorship run by our HOA president, Todd. Todd was the worst kind of leader. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. I'm sorry. The kind who loved power but hated accountability. He enforced ridiculous rules like fining people $200 for leaving their trash cans out a minute past 9 a.m. But blatantly ignored the rules when it suited him. His own yard was a mess of unpermitted structures, and his fence was taller than allowed by city ordinances. But Todd's true sin? Using the HOA as his personal piggy bank. At first, I tried reasoning with him. My fence was slightly off color because the approved stain wasn't available, and he fined me $500. I explained, provided receipts, and asked for leniency. Todd smirked, said rules are rules, and walked away. That's when I decided I would take him down. Not with screaming or public arguments, but strategically, legally, and in a way he'd never recover from. Step 1. Become the inside man. Todd's first mistake was underestimating me. I volunteered for the HOA board under the guise of wanting to get involved in the community. I played the part of the eager, naive newbie perfectly. For 2 years, I attended every meeting, quietly observing how Todd operated. I learned how he controlled the board by bullying other members and burying them in paperwork. He pushed through votes when only his allies were present and conveniently lose paperwork submitted by dissenting homeowners. I kept my head down, took detailed notes, and waited. My goal was to outlast his term as president so I could begin making changes. Then I discovered Todd's second mistake. He wasn't just a bully, he was a thief. Dang. He said, I'll be the inside man. That is some patient work, bro. That's crazy. Step 2, follow the money. Todd loved to brag about how he kept the HOA's finances in order, but something didn't add up. The annual HOA fees were high, much higher than in similar neighborhoods, but the common areas were falling apart. The pool was closed half the summer due to maintenance issues, and the landscaping looked like it hadn't been touched in months. I started digging. As the HOA treasurer, Todd had access to all the accounts, but was notoriously cagey about sharing financial details. I asked for the budget during a meeting, and Todd laughed it off, saying, "Don't worry, I've got it under control." I filed a formal request for the financial records, which, under HOA rules, he was required to provide. Weeks went by with no response. That's when I started talking to neighbors. Turns out, I wasn't the only one suspicious. Over a dozen homeowners had requested access to the budget over the years, only to be ignored. One neighbor claimed Todd had used HOA funds to install a new patio at his house, while another swore he'd seen Todd's kids at the community pool during its maintenance closure. Armed with these suspicions, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA board, forcing Todd to provide his records. He stalled, but I wasn't backing down. Okay, this is sounding like my HOA low-key. We have a freaking hot tub that's been closed ever since I moved here. And apparently it's been closed for 3 years prior to that. So it's kind of crazy, kind of insane, but that's HOAs for you. I freaking hate HOAs. If you live in an HOA, I'm sorry. Step 3, build the case. When Todd finally handed over the financial documents, they were a mess. Invoices were missing, payments were mislabeled, and some expenses were downright bizarre. A $15,000 landscaping fee paid to a company that didn't exist. He's cooked. Thousands spent on administrative costs with no explanation. I cross-referenced the HOA's bank statements with public records and found the smoking gun. Todd was funneling money to his personal accounts. Jeez. Even better, I discovered Todd had been inflating contractor fees, pocketing the difference and splitting the profits with his buddy, a shady contractor who handled most of the HOA's maintenance. I compiled everything into a detailed report, complete with spreadsheets, photos, and notarized statements from neighbors who had seen Todd's antics firsthand. Well, he's doing the due diligence for this, for sure. I hope Todd gets caught. Step 4, the coup. I waited for the annual HOA meeting, which was typically a snooze fest attended by only a handful of homeowners, but this time I made sure people showed up. I spent weeks knocking on doors, explaining what Todd had been up to. I didn't share everything, just enough to get people angry and curious. On the night of the meeting, the room was packed. Todd started the meeting like usual, droning on about how difficult it was to manage the HOA and how much he sacrificed for the community. That's when I stood up. I calmly asked if he could explain some discrepancies in the budget. Todd laughed nervously and said, "I don't think this is the time or place." You know what's so funny? That's exactly how these HOA members be acting too. Every single time you bring up something, they're like, "Oh, nah, not right now. This isn't a good time. Send it through an email." Yeah, okay. He replied, "I actually told Todd, I'm sorry, let's draw back. Let's draw back. Let's draw back." Todd laughed nervously and said, "I don't think this is the time or place." I replied, "Actually, Todd, it's the perfect time." I handed out copies of my reports to everyone in the room. The mood shifted instantly. People started reading, whispering, and then shouting. Todd tried to regain control, but it was too late. I called for a vote to remove him as president. By the end of the night, Todd was out. That's what I'm talking about, okay? Clap it up for our poster here. Todd was out of there. I told you he was cooked. Thank you. I hate these freaking HOAs, bro. Step 5, the final blow. After Todd was removed, we hired an independent auditor to go through the HOA's finances. They confirmed everything. Todd had embezzled over $50,000, mismanaged tens of thousands more, and committed multiple counts of fraud. We reported him to the police and filed a civil lawsuit to recover the stolen funds. 50,000 embezzled is insane. I wonder how many people on these HOAs be getting away with this stuff too. That's insane, bro. But it didn't end there. Todd's shady contractor buddy was also exposed and banned from doing business in the county. Todd had to sell his house to pay restitution and legal fees. His name became a running joke in the neighborhood and no one would touch him professionally. With Todd gone, we restructured the HOA to prevent another dictator from taking over. We implemented term limits, required multiple board members to approve financial decisions, and created an online portal so all homeowners could access budgets and meeting minutes. Perfect. That's really smart. Shout out to this poster, man. Like, they really got this on lock and got Todd out of there, and not only that, but restructured the HOA perfectly to make sure hopefully this doesn't happen again. Our last part here, the aftermath. Every time I walk past Todd's old house, now owned by a lovely family, I smile. The pool is open, the landscaping is beautiful, and the HOA fees are lower than ever. Todd, meanwhile, moved to a neighboring town where he reportedly tried to join another HOA board, only to be laughed out of the room when someone Googled his name. Justice wasn't just served, it was plated, garnished, and savored. Yo, amen to that. That's amazing. I gotta drop a like on that one. That's awesome. You love to hear it. You love to see it. Amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Shout out to him for doing that. You love to see it because I hate freaking HOAs. If you guys have enjoyed these stories, let me know what you want to hear next, or send me a message on Discord with your story, or even drop it in there. I think I got a room for that. But yeah, if you guys are enjoying these videos, let me know in the comments. Drop a like for me, subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you in the next one. God bless.